We all have things we try to outrun, right? Stress, anxiety, that to-do list that just never seems to end. But what if the solution isn't to run faster? What if it's to, just stop running altogether? Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful story from the ancient philosophers Wangzi, and it has a surprisingly relevant answer to our very modern problems.
And to really get this, the story starts with a real heavy hitter, Confucius. But we're not meeting him at the top of his game. No, not at all. Instead, we find him totally lost, completely exhausted, and about to get a life lesson from the most unlikely person you could imagine. So picture this. Confucius has been on the road for years. He's trying to get rulers to adopt his philosophy of goodness and order, but it's not working. He's been rejected. He's been ignored, even humiliated. He and his followers are just beat. Their spirits are crushed. And they stop to rest by a river, feeling like their whole life's mission has been a complete and utter failure.
And as they're sitting there, this old fisherman in a tiny boat just kind of drifts by. Confucius's students, who are still pretty proud, they puff out their chests and tell the fisherman who their master is, this great man trying to bring virtue to the world. But the fisherman, he's just not impressed at all. In fact, he looks at Confucius and sees a guy who is basically causing his own misery. And man, the fisherman's take is immediate, and it is sharp. He tells Confucius that for all his big talk about benevolence and righteousness, he's really just meddling. He says Confucius is torturing his mind and exhausting his body, all while getting further and further away from the real truth of things. And this isn't some vague critique either. Oh no, he gets super specific. He tells Confucius that he's completely tangled up in a bunch of personal flaws and that he's heading for 4 major disasters. And until he deals with that stuff, his whole plan to fix the world, it's totally doomed.
Okay, so let's start with the first batch, what the fisherman calls the 8 personal faults. These are all about how we deal with the world and with each other.
This list is just, wow, it's a timeless breakdown of how we get in our own way. Look at that first one, meddling in what's not your business. Or number 5, insincere praise. The fisherman is basically saying, hey, you're out here trying to save the world, but your everyday actions, they're just creating little pockets of conflict and dishonesty. You're talking a big game, but you haven't even gotten your own house in order. But wait, it gets even worse. Beyond those day-to-day faults, the fisherman points to 4 huge calamities. And these aren't just little slip-ups. These are deep, fundamental flaws that pretty much guarantee you're gonna suffer. The big theme here, it's all about ego. The fisherman is calling Confucius out for obsessing over big projects just to get a good reputation, and for stubbornly insisting he's right even when he knows he's wrong. You see, these are classic ego traps, and the fisherman is saying Confucius has walked right into every single one. So Confucius is just humbled, right? He asks what he's supposed to do, and instead of giving him a new set of rules to follow, the fisherman tells him a story, a simple parable that cuts right to the heart of the whole problem. He tells him about a man who lived in the state of constant fear. And what was he so afraid of? His own shadow. What did he despise? His own footprints. It sounds completely absurd, I know, but it's a brilliant way to talk about fighting something that's literally a part of you. So what was this guy's grand solution to his problem? To run. He figured if he just ran fast enough, he could ditch his shadow and his footprints. But you know how this goes. The faster he ran, the more footprints he made. The shadow, of course, was always right there with him. He just ran and ran and ran until he literally collapsed and died from exhaustion. And that's the absolute tragedy of it. The man's solution was the very thing that killed him. He poured every last ounce of his energy into this pointless struggle, when the real solution was incredibly simple. If he had just stepped into the shade, his shadow would have vanished. If he had just stood still for a second, the footprints would have stopped. So what does the story really mean for you and me? The fisherman uses it to explain the 2 kinds of suffering we deal with in life and why we almost always focus on the wrong one. This is such a brilliant distinction. You've got external punishment. Think of that as pain from outside forces. The slide here says metal and wood, like the tools of torture, but then there's internal punishment. And where does that come from? Our own agitation, our own mistakes. It's the suffering we inflict on ourselves. The man running from his shadow wasn't being chased by some monster. His torment was 100% self-created. To make it even clearer, the fisherman uses one more metaphor. Imagine you're drinking with friends. What's the point? The purpose is connection. It's joy. But what if you get totally obsessed with the cup? Is it fancy? Is it cheap plastic? You get so fixated on this tiny, irrelevant detail that you completely forget why you're even there, and all that potential for joy just evaporates into anxiety.
And this brings us right back home, to our own lives. Because, let's be honest, in so many ways, we are all that man. We are all running desperately from our own shadows, completely forgetting that we have the power to just step into the shade.
So what are our shadows today?
They're the nonstop pressure at work, the endless notifications pinging on our phones, all the worries about the future, that nagging feeling that we're just not doing enough. And what's our solution? We try to outrun it all. We work longer, we schedule more, we try to hustle our way out of stress.
And that's the trap, isn't it? Just like the man in the story, we're focused on the symptoms, the shadow, instead of the source, which is us, standing out in the sun. We try to outrun the problem, but we never stop to ask the really important questions. Why am I doing this? Have I lost sight of my original goal? Have I, like that person with the cup, gotten so obsessed with the details that I've forgotten all about the joy?
So the entire story, the final lesson from that wise old fisherman, it all boils down to this one simple, provocative question. In the middle of all your striving and all your stressing and all your running, what would actually happen if you just stopped? If you just found a quiet moment, stepped into the shade, and let the shadows and footprints simply disappear? Definitely something to think about.